I'm going to fight hard to try to implement what is called the Buffett Rule. The Buffett Rule says that millionaires should pay at least 30% income tax rates instead of 10, 15, 20, and I want to go even further.
Hillary Clinton cited the legendary investor Warren Buffett. She says if she's elected, the rich will pay higher taxes. Daily Beast politics reporter Betsy Woodruff is here, as is Democratic strategist John Rowley. Betsy, will this kind of message help Hillary get elected?
Well, the message could theoretically be valuable. The only problem is going to be if people call her on the fact that implementing the Buffett Rule wouldn't actually generate that much revenue for the government. It would produce about $4 billion, which puts a teensy little nick in the deficit. It's mostly a symbolic gesture. It's sticking it to rich people for the sake of sticking it to rich people, which Democrats might like, but general election voters might not be as jazzed about.
Well, and I was going to ask you as a follow-up, John, what about her own campaign? I mean, she has a lot of support from the so-called 1%.
Well, she just came off of a visit from Warren Buffett, so I think it's pretty wise of her to talk about income inequality and with one of the great businessmen and entrepreneurs and capitalists in the country, and he's somebody who's advocated this for a long time. So I think pivoting off of the Oracle of Omaha, you'd think more Republicans would like his message. They like his message when he's helping them make money and they're using his wisdom to make money. But when he talks about income inequality and things like this, they tend to forget his wisdom.
All right, I want to go to a town hall meeting in Iowa because Hillary Clinton there admitted that Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, is causing some employers to keep workers on part-time. That is to say, to avoid providing health coverage. I'm going to quote her here. She says, "I really worry about it because there's a trend to try and move more and more people into part-time work." Judy, what is your take, Betsy, on how we see the labor market right now?
Well, look, it's not great. And the fact that Hillary said this is kind of astonishing. What's the definition of gaffe, right? When a politician accidentally says something that they believe to be true. This is Christmas coming early for Republicans because they can say, look, underemployment as a problem, the Democratic frontrunner has just pegged to the president's signature health care reform. So over at the RNC, I feel like they're probably popping bottles of champagne right now. The fact that she actually named the ACA, I mean, come on, that's
John?
interesting.
I think much ado about nothing, Betsy. I mean, I think, there's something out there called permatemps where big corporations essentially don't bring people on full time and have them permanently as temporary workers. And this has been going on for a long time, even before Obamacare came online. So I think part of what she was talking about is that problem, and I don't see this as a big gaffe at all.
That's true, though. She actually referred to the Affordable Care Act, though. Like, she said Affordable Care Act is part of the reason for this problem. The fact that she named it means it's much more of an issue than we might think otherwise.
Betsy, John, thank you both. Glad to have you here.
You interrupted me,
September 30th,
Jeb. Are you going to apologize, Jeb? No. Am I allowed to finish?
Yes, one at a time. Go ahead,
Am I allowed to finish?
Go ahead, Mr. Trump.
So,
Little of your
again,
own medicine there.
I know you're trying to build up your energy, Jeb, but it's not working
one at a
very
time.
well.
That was one of the more intense moments from the GOP debate. Last night on Jimmy Kimmel, Donald Trump was Jimmy's guest. They talked about the politics of campaigning.
Really, I would like to see the Republican Party come together, and I've been a little bit divisive in the sense that I've been hitting people pretty hard.
A little bit, yeah.
And ultimately, we have to come together and get this thing done, and I'm having a great time.
Do you think Ted Cruz is scared of you?
No, I don't think so.
I think he is.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I think he's very, very careful. Do you think Jeb Bush is scared of you or just scared in general?
I think he's scared.
My Power Political panel is back. Daily Beast politics reporter Betsy Woodruff and Democratic strategist John Rowley. Betsy, what do you make of Trump calling for GOP unity?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because originally he seemed a little bit on the fence about whether or not he'd run as an independent. So the fact that now he's saying he's going to support whoever the nominee is, assuming, I think he probably assumes that it'll be himself, that's a big deal, especially because so many Republicans are ripping their hair out over things he's said and over the fact that he's jeopardizing some of these Senate and House races. So it's kind of an olive branch, although the fact that he's the prohibitive frontrunner means it only means so much that now he's playing nice.
Okay, as for your take, I want to get it. Jimmy Kimmel calling out Donald Trump on his medical report.
His laboratory tests were astonishingly excellent. His physical strength and stamina are extraordinary. If elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency.
So, John, I want to get your take on that language. But just as a reminder, I mean, Donald Trump, a lot of his business was in Atlantic City, in the casinos, with the fights. I feel like he came up with Don King. John, do you feel like that explains his campaign?
Yeah, that was a medical report written by the likes of Don King. It almost sounds like it was written by Trump himself. I mean, just the bombast and to be that over the top is incredible. And then the thing earlier as well, in terms of him talking to Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, him with an olive branch, but in one hand, but nitroglycerin in the other. I mean, he may implode the Republican Party, whether he wins or doesn't win. And so I think it's hilarious to hear them talk about him being an olive branch candidate.
Okay, quick reminder to our viewers, to you, your friends, Fox Business hosting the first debate of the new year, Thursday, January 14th. It will be a big night. Now, on an international front, getting back to Donald Trump, he has always said if he were president, the U.S.'s relationship with Russia would be better.
I think I'd get along very well with Vladimir Putin. I just think so. People would say, what do you mean? I think I'd get along well with him. Obama and him, he hates Obama. Obama hates him. We have unbelievably bad relationships.
John, what do you think Putin has to gain?
It's hard to tell. I mean, he's a wily character. I mean, but this Trump-Putin bromance is very interesting, and I think this is going to be very harmful to Trump, though, later on in the campaign. This reminds me of when Oprah endorsed Obama around Iowa, and that was big in 2007, 2008. I think this will be an inverse Oprah, where this endorsement is going to haunt Trump later in the primary, whether his campaign lasts another 10 weeks or it lasts another 10 months.
Betsy, does it show that Trump is likable from the point of view of Russia, or does it show that Putin thinks that Trump is able to be manipulated?
I don't think anyone across the ideological spectrum is looking for a president who is essentially cozying up to one of our greatest adversaries. So I think we're going to be looking for Democrat or Republican, or going to be looking for somebody who's very strong. And I think that's certainly a message that Hillary Clinton's been putting out there. And I think this is going to be a big problem for Trump because it counters his tough talk on immigration and foreign policy. And he's really kind of all over the board. It's like with the olive branch one day, and he's going to run as an independent the other.
Betsy?
He's all over the board.
This should be a kiss of death for Donald Trump. The fact that the Tea Party folks and conservative activists who claim to like liberty are now on board with a guy who's practically been endorsed by an authoritarian former KGB agent is bonkers. If it doesn't lower his poll numbers, that tells us something fascinating and unusual about the nature of the conservative base in the Republican Party.
Well, it is an interesting campaign so far. Betsy, John, thank you for your time.